Hey guys, it's Gala Avery from the Video Archives podcast. While we're shuffling tapes and gearing up for season 2, Quentin and Roger have sent me on a mission all around Los Angeles and beyond to talk with filmmakers, photographers, VHS collectors, and other interesting characters. What are we going to be talking about? Well, that's up for my guests to decide. On the Gala show, guests have 30 minutes to talk about whatever topic they want you to know about. Filmmakers like Josh Miller will tell us how he found his tribe, while writers like Larry Karaszewski will let you know what he considers to be a true LA movie. VHS collectors like Connor Holt make an argument for the genre of pirate movies, while writers like Josh Olson are going to let us in on what he considers to be right-wing cinema. Actors like Percy Hines White will share his love of outsider art, while animators and cartoonist Sierra Nielli will reminisce on his experiences of growing up in a Philly pizza shop and how this time in his life influenced him to pick up a pencil. So, join me every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The Gala show premieres October 26th. Available wherever you get your podcasts. On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery join LAPD's Vice Squad with Peter Hyams Busting. Starring Elliott Gould and Robert Blake, two Los Angeles vice cops find themselves up against corrupt superiors when they try to bring a crime boss to justice. Quentin and Roger discuss where this movie sits in Hyams' career, how the film walks the line, and how the action sequences predate 80s Hong Kong cinema. Next up, don't let the title fool you. The bet is on in Little Darlings. Two 15-year-old girls from different walks of life compete to see who can lose their virginity first while at summer camp. Bad News Bears with Girls, Tatum O'Neal and Kristy McNichol star in an unexpectedly realistic view of female youth in the 1980s. We explore what it means for a girl to become a woman, the anxieties of keeping up with your peers, and the beautiful Paramount Home video box. And lastly, there's more to do than ski in the Swiss Alps, especially when it comes to Julia. A psychological sex romp in Switzerland, Roger and Quentin dive headfirst into this immoral tale that centers around a young man named Patrick who has traveled to see his father for holiday. Sexually frustrated, Patrick's obsession about losing his virginity and becoming a man come to a head over his vacation. The main object of his affection, none other than Julia, played by Sylvia Kristel. All of this and more on today's episode of the Video Archives podcast. I'm your girl, Gala Avery, and joining us now, here's Quentin and Roger.
Hello, everybody. This is Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avery.
And we're your hosts for the Video Archives podcast. Cut the buckle off. So, first up tonight is a film that I almost couldn't believe that Roger had never seen, that I was
With my love for this director, it is kind of hard to believe.
Absolutely.
And especially since this is like his birth, kind of. Maybe not his birth, but
I would say
his coming of age.
I would say kind of the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah.
And that director that we're referring to is the great Peter Hyams, who we've been big fans of since the 80s when we used to see his movies all the time at the theaters. One of the truly great unsung, as far as I'm concerned, one of the great unsung action directors of the 70s and the 80s. You know, one of the great practitioners of that genre. And that all started with the movie that we're going to talk about right now, which is his violent buddy cop movie, Busting, starring Elliott Gould and Robert Blake, as well as the great Alan Garfield, and we'll get to him in a little bit later.
Busting. It's the dirty work that has to be done. And it takes a special kind of cop to do it.
I think you're a vice cop.
Vice cops? What is it? Cop around here? Look, I don't want no trouble.
Elliott Gould and Robert Blake. Two vice cops with one virtue. Busting.
Busting with co-hit Little Darlings will be playing on January 10th and January 11th at the New Beverly Cinema, 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For even more information, go to thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema, always on film.
So let me start by reading the back of the video box. Okay, this is an MGM UA video box. This is from the Eddie Brandt's collection. And here we go. Meet the long and the short of LA's Vice Squad. Gum-chewing Keneally.
That's like such an unfair copy thing.
No, they're making fun of how tall Elliott Gould is and how short Robert Blake is. Okay, I'll start again. Meet the long and the short of LA's Vice Squad. Gum-chewing Keneally, Elliott Gould, is the lanky one. Farrell, Robert Blake, is the short one, with a short fuse. They may not be the best cops in town, but they sure are the funniest. Inside jokes and put-downs are a way of coping with the lurid underworld of vice, yet humor doesn't lessen the film's forceful impact. The picture, explains co-producer Robert Chartoff, is very much an examination of the relationship of the Vice Squad with the public and so-called criminals. Justice wears a badge in busting. So does injustice. Keneally and Farrell carry the biggest sticks in the neighborhood as long as they bust addicts and hookers. Go after the crime lord behind it all, however, and they're stopped cold by crooked cops on the kingpin's payroll. Keneally and Farrell aren't the type to blow the whistle on police corruption. Instead, they'll do anything to blow it away. Approximate running time, 1 hour, 29 minutes. Color, 1973, MGM, UA. Okay, so just to give a little setup to where this film falls in the career of Peter Hyams, by this point in time, Peter Hyams had made his directorial debut on the ABC Movie of the Week. He did Good Night, My Love, I think is what the name of it is. It's a like a Farewell, My Lovely kind of a 40s detective noir pastiche, starring Richard Boone and Michael Dunn. And then he followed it up with a pretty interesting movie called The Rolling Man, which had Dennis Weaver. That was a pretty bizarre little film.
I haven't been able to stop thinking about that movie. Like Dennis Weaver gives this kind of performance that I've never seen Dennis Weaver give. Like and a progression of this performance, an arc of the growth of this character.
Yeah, well, he's kind of
crazy character study that was.
He's kind of an ineffectual fool at the beginning. Yeah. His wife gets killed in an auto accident, and he tries to, he sees it and he gets mad. So her lover, played by Don Stroud, who got her in the crash in the first place, he tries to kill him, and then he doesn't, but he gets put in jail for attempted murder.
I did my time, but his face looked like hamburger.
Yeah, and it looks like a fucking idiot is going to prison, and he is kind of a fucking idiot, but he gets stronger and more of a man of substance to some degree.
Worldly. He becomes worldly,
and he becomes kind of like he's not the fool he was anymore. But not that he's gotten any smarter per se, but he just he's got convict panache.
It was just tough for a TV movie. It was like this deep character study.
Well, the thing that kept happening through the movie is you kept saying, "This guy is a fucking idiot." As if he's like mentally challenged. And I was like, no. He's not mentally challenged. He is an idiot. I will guarantee you. No, but he's just plain stupid. But as the movie goes on, it does kind of start playing to some degree like a redneck Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
To some degree, because almost like the character of Forrest Gump, he kind of goes on this long journey that actually seems quite pointless, the way the Forrest Gump journey seems. And it's more like things happen to him rather than he makes things happen. That actually leads to like a really terrific
like a moral play.
Final confrontation with the Don Stroud character. And Don Stroud, who's actually one of my favorite actors of the 70s. I always loved Don Stroud.
He's amazing in the end
of this. He's fantastic. He steals the movie, as far as I'm concerned. He steals the movie. It's actually one of Don Stroud's best scenes. Yeah. He's really, really terrific in the movie. I used Don Stroud as in Django Unchained, was happy to use him.
I can imagine, being a studio head and watching like the work that Peter Hyams is doing on TV and being like, yeah, let's get that guy to do our movie.
Well, okay, so
our busting vice cop film.
Well, after those two movies, he now moves into feature films, and he does two movies before he does Busting. He does the abortion drama with Pamela Sue Martin and Parker Stevenson, Our Time, which I'd like to do on this show, like sometime in the next few episodes. I mean, I really want to, I haven't seen Our Time since I saw it when I was a kid, and it was just right over my head. So I thought it was the most boring thing in the world. But I'd love to watch it now. And especially the idea of Peter Hyams doing an abortion drama.
Yeah.
All right. That takes place in the 50s or early 60s, I guess. And then he followed it up with another film noir style parody called Peeper. Which I've never seen also, with Michael Caine and Natalie Wood. Now, this is his next studio assignment, which he wrote, Busting. And this is the movie where, like, as Roger had mentioned before, where I think the Peter Hyams that we kind of know and love for the rest of his career is sort of born. Now, when he does his next movie after this, Capricorn 1, he will be officially born.
Yeah.
That is the Peter Hyams we all know.
That was when I became introduced to, it was me, kid in the theater, Capricorn 1.
Yeah.
One of the greatest movies I'd ever seen that year. It was like, that was the action film for me that year.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, Peter Hyams. From that moment on, I was like, into Peter
it's
Hyams.
like after he did Capricorn 1, he's sort of like, okay, that's my style now.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about Busting, I'm a real fan of the sleazy, gritty 70s cop movie. I can't get enough of them. Just knowing that
morally
there's
ambiguous cop, the Vietnam era cop.
Yeah, just knowing that there's maybe even like 4 out there still that I haven't seen gets me very excited. So I'm kind of just stuck watching them, for the 7th time, again and again and again. And then this matches up with that, the whole kind of buddy movie that was a big thing in the 70s.
Coming on the heels of Freebie and the Bean.
I think this is like, if I'm not mistaken, this might even be the same year. So I don't think it's jumping off of Freebie and the Bean. I think it's it's
just the zeitgeist. These are.
The
cynicism is in the air. In the mid-70s.
You're just channeling it as buddy cops, but it's like the buddy movie got set up with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So that point, it was okay. Well, what 2 male stars can we team up together and they're buddies? And then part of the movie is their rapport with each other. That usually has a comic spin. What makes Busting a unique animal is. Part of the thing about these movies was to, depending on the side of the line socially that you lived, was to make the cops a little dubious, that they crossed the line in order to bust the criminals because society has now put handcuffs on them that weren't there before. And then that's their way to balance the scales. Like the movie Patton. Depending on what side of the line you sat on was your take on Patton, okay? If you're like, oh, this guy's a terrible warmonger, and this is like the reason why America's foreign policy has been the way it has been, and this is a perfect examination of why we can't have a monster like that be a general. And then if you're on another side, like, no, see, that's the kind of general we need. We need a guy like that. That's what's the problem. We had a guy like that, we would have won the Vietnam War.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to watch Black Hawk Down.
And Patton kind of almost embraces both views of that, depending on where you're sitting. And the same view could be looked at when it comes to Dirty Harry. The same view could be looked at when it comes to Popeye Doyle in The French Connection. And then it just keeps on going down. Now, like
funny because it seems like there's a lot of John Milius swirling around in that stew you're talking about.
The idea behind the film is Keneally Gould and Farrell Blake are vice cops, and they're busting all the the pimps and the petty whores and
gay nightclubs,
and
drug dealers,
weenie waggers. All right, hanging out in men in public toilets. That's their beat.
That's their beat.
That's their beat.
It's a crap beat.
They kind of don't seem to realize how shitty the job they do is, because as by virtue of the title, they're all about busting.
Yeah,
they're all about this is their beat, and they want to just get as many arrests as possible. And so when they're setting up a prostitute, it doesn't matter if she's like some Nancy Allen, like high class hooker from Dress to Kill, all right, that they're busting that could like bail out the next day, or if it's a poor heroin addicted wretch that you just feel nothing but sympathy for when it's obvious that she's just like at the end of their rope. Gould and Blake have no sympathy for them whatsoever. They could give a shit about any of the people that they bust. They don't care about their situation. They don't care about what happens to them. They just want the bust. The best point about busting is something that Elvis Mitchell said talking about the movie, because Busting has a companion piece movie, and that companion piece movie is Richard Rush's Freebie and the Bean.
Yeah.
But there's a decided difference between Freebie and the Bean and Busting, because in Freebie and the Bean, Richard Rush is taking the fascism inherently embedded in a lot of these 70s cop movies and making it a joke.
Yeah.
He's playing it big. He's
playing it for comedy.
Yeah, he's playing it as huge, outrageous set piece comedy. But he's leaning in to a disturbing degree of the sheer beating and fascism involved in this genre.
And how funny that is.
And
he starts off with them.
It's very funny.
Violating search laws by going through garbage.
It's very funny. And the thing about it is not every critic knew how to take it. And he said that, I remember him giving an interview at the time. He goes, well, this critic that who always liked my work and who I always liked gave the film a bad review. And so then I called him up on the phone. I go, really? You didn't like it? I would have thought you would think it was funny. And he goes, well, I did think it was funny. I did laugh. But then I felt really bad, all right, because I laughed. He goes, well, that's what I wanted. Yeah. I want you to laugh. I want you to give over. Then I want you to feel a little queasy about what it is you're laughing about. Okay, so that is the methodology of where Richard Rush is coming from when he's doing this in Freebie and the Bean. As Elvis Mitchell said about Busting when it comes to what Peter Hyams is doing, Busting is like Freebie and the Bean minus any irony.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be funny too, but we're not meant to be laughing at the fascism. We're meant to be laughing with the fascism.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting component of the movie, is that it becomes this character study. Mm-hmm. And one of the...
Of Elliott Gould.
Of Elliott Gould specifically. Like, one of the criticisms I heard levied against the film was that they didn't give them any background on who these guys were. But I
don't think that's a criticism at all.
I found background everywhere, though.
Yeah.
There, you go to Elliott Gould's apartment and you see the pictures of himself on the wall that he was like a quarterback in college. So he was like a player. Mm-hmm. And then they indicate they had both been to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so these guys were soldiers. It's thrown out like an aside. Mm-hmm. The point, I think, is that these guys are grunts. Mm-hmm. They're just like at the most basic level. Mm-hmm. That's all. They're happy. They would be happy doing the little things, the little wins, the little grunts, busting down hookers. They're fine with that if that were real. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they realize that even that little bit that they're supposed to be given, that would make them happy in their simple lives, they don't even get that anymore.
Okay.
They're not allowed to have that.
I don't quite buy the character's point of departure for feeling misused by the system. I don't buy that. All right, as a viewer.
But that's all Elliott Gould's arc from beginning to end.
But the thing again, it's just they bust this Nancy Allen-like character right at the beginning. It's one of the first things that they do.
Yeah, a high-class hooker.
Yeah, a high-class hooker, because that's what they do. That's their job.
Yeah.
Okay. And what they want to do is they want to get her appointment book. So they can just we'll see who else is out there.
Bust more people.
We just want
to bust people.
Everything is a daisy chain that leads to something else.
It's like getting a goal.
Yeah. And so the thing about it is they bust her. They even kind of like the girl a little bit. All right. But it's the job. We know what it is. All right. And then the next day when they appear in court, she's given a very good bail and she's able to get on the street the very next day. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. What's going on here? Well, she's a friend of blah, blah, blahs. And so blah, blah, blah. sent down to just kind of.
Her attorney rolls into court like it's like he's the most comfortable place he's ever been, and he's like sweet talking the judge.
Okay, but let's get this clear. It's not like they've arrested a vicious pimp that they know of all the different women that he's fucked over. And they've arrested him. And now this guy is being bounced out on bail the next day because of some higher up connections. It's not that they've busted some street weed peddler or cocaine peddler that has higher up connections that is able to bail out the very next day. They're busting a high class prostitute that they even like.
Yeah.
But they're pissed that she's not going down to at least, you do 3 weeks in the county jail. That gets them to start asking more this question, and that leads them to eventually to the vice baron of Los Angeles, which is played by Alan Garfield.
The great Alan Garfield. Hey, you know what? I found a Franklin Browner review.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I dug it out of the archives. Hyams busts out of his director trainers and into the studio big time with Busting, a cynical buddy cop action film that showcases his feature film arrival through energetic use of a doorway dolly. To say that he keeps the camera moving is an understatement. Hyams is so in love with movement all along all available axes that he designs his cinema to maximize the use of the humble Matthews doorway dolly. Is Busting original? No. We've seen it all before and with greater awareness. But does it bust your ass to the ground under the wheels of the Hyams Express? Yes, it does.
Well said, Franklin Browner.
So, Elliott Gould and Robert Blake are great together. They are a dream together.
They are a dream together. I want to see 3 more movies with them playing Kennelly and Farrell, and I could watch Robert Blake do 3 Farrell movies by himself. All right.
Like one of the very first busts they do, like after it doesn't work out in court trying to bust the high class hooker, and they're given kind of a crap job. You guys are going to go down and like bust the gay club. Yeah. As if it's almost like a joke to put them into that. Into that
the
situation.
movie does think it's a joke.
Well, not only does the people in charge think it's a joke, probably. But Peter Hyams probably thinks it's a joke. However, I've heard Peter Hyams defending this because he went out and he talked to actual vice cops in Chicago, in New York, in Boston, in L.A. And he says that everything that's in the movie came from one of those stories. Everything really happened.
Okay, but
so they go down to this gay club. Yeah. As if they're like supposed to, dress up to go undercover, but Robert Blake doesn't dress up at all.
Okay, well, that's one of those weird things. Okay, so Robert Blake doesn't dress up gay to go to the gay club. However, Robert Blake's accoutrement at that time
in 1974.
At that time in the 70s, tight black jeans. Tight. I mean,
let's just say that look would come to be emulated.
The Ohio players wrote Skin Tight about Robert Blake's jeans. So, like, tight jeans and then, like, a top-heavy muscle shirt that just hugs him.
They go into this club and they're supposed to, find crime.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of a peaceful place and nothing bad is going on there.
Well, that's what the deal about it is. Okay, so the thing is, now look.
And this is like a repeating theme throughout the movie.
Well, look, okay, back in the 70s, a vice cop, part of your job was harassing homosexuals. That literally was part of the job. They were also sent into gay bars to see if there's anything problem going on, and if there is, they can
public,
yes, exactly,
obscenities occurring.
Yeah, look, they could just be sitting at the bar, all right, incognito at the bar. But like, if they can see that somebody's actually getting blown in the bathroom, then they could shut the bar down. So they're sent to this gay bar because they hear that after midnight, after close, or 1:30 or whatever, after close, that they have a little like a striptease show that goes on after hours.
After hours.
After they close. So we want you to go to the bar, see if this is going on. If it's going on, then shut them down.
And there's absolutely nothing going on.
Okay, shut them down. Okay, now forget about the fact that, like, I don't give a fuck if this gay bar is having a strip show after close. I'm all down with that. That actually sounds like a cool gay bar. So I'm not on their side. Even if it were legit, I'm not on their side, all right, as far as like busting this poor establishment down, this poor guy, all right, and these consenting adults, all right, who just want to do their thing. Okay, so forget about the fact that I'm not on Keneally and Farrell's side at all about this. However, that never even happens. That appears to not be the case. They are getting to closing time. There's a ton of cops outside. There's no talk of a strip show. There's no hint of it. It doesn't seem like it's going on. There is no strip club.
There is no obscenities occurring in this nightclub.
There's a bunch of just
it's just a nightclub.
A bunch of gay people just enjoying themselves.
They're just dancing.
having a night out. They realize something's up with these fucking guys. And they try to bounce them. They just try to kick them out.
Yeah, you guys are vice. Get out. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they know that they're vice yet. All right. No. They just maybe they think, they're like
they're just being dicks. They're just being themselves. They don't even really want to be there, and they're just kind of grumpy about it.
Yeah. But I love Antonio Fargas. You two gentlemen have the wrong attitude. So these guys like start a fight with the bar. The bar gets into a fight, and now everyone gets busted because these guys started a fucking fight. Like, and when I say these guys, I mean the two cops.
Yeah, and it's like a chaotic fight scene. It's like the fight scene at the Go-Go Club in Point Blank. Yeah. It's just like madness and red light.
Well, it's got that
windows are suddenly smashing in and cops are swarming in.
It's got that great visual moment where it's all bathed in red, and then there's a window, but the window is painted red, and Blake throws a guy through the window, and then when you actually see this unfiltered
light from the outside
coming in, like all of a sudden the blue light from the night and the green from the trees from across the street, just like it's a colorful experience.
Yeah,
that happens when all of a sudden just that glass window is busted open.
Well, and then the very, very next shot is court the next day, and you're on the back head of like a big head of hair.
Yeah.
And as the camera slowly comes around, in court, and we realize that the two people that are up there are, two of the cross-dressers that were there that night, who Hyams shows with no irony, or maybe with all irony. Is it all or none? Hyams shows like with such compassion.
Well, I don't know about that. All right.
You don't think so?
Well, here's the deal. I felt that, but I don't know if Hyams shows
if he meant to do it.
I don't know if the movie is 100% on their side. Well, I mean, the thing is, what you're saying is 100% correct.
Because he shows that reveal. Suddenly we realize they're hugging each other, and they're
scared to death.
Scared to death.
They're scared to death. They almost might as well be children in this situation. All right. When you can make
vulnerable
you can make a case that that's infantilizing them. All right. But the thing is, it's almost like they're children, and then the judge is completely
humiliating them.
Completely humiliating to them. The people in the court are laughing at them. I'm not 100% sure that we aren't meant to be laughing at them. I think that there is an aspect that we are meant to be laughing at them, but there also is an aspect where we are meant to feel sorry for them at the same time.
It sets up a series of events where we see that the people that are supposed to be the criminals are not necessarily bad people. Like even Sid Haig, who is dressed up like Alan Garfield, who is Rizzo, the
vice baron.
Yeah, the big baron of it all, who actually, when he justifies himself and what he's doing, you kind of realize, what am I doing that's so bad?
Well, yeah, okay.
And when you really track through
when he gives his speech, it's pretty hard to refute.
He's not really doing anything that people aren't paying for willingly, and nobody's getting hurt along the way, and it's just part of doing business.
Even the whole concept, forget about the fact that, like, there's nothing about this movie that has remained relevant from a social standpoint as far as like we're on these guys' side. Okay, there's nothing about that has survived the last few decades. But that even goes even so far as to even the vice squad position of the police force in general. Who the fuck are you to stop me from smoking a joint? Who the fuck are you to stop me from getting blown in a fucking bathroom? Who the fuck are you? These are victimless crimes.
I'm going to say why I do think that there is an avenue into them. It's that soldiers who go to war, usually
You keep hitting the soldier thing. I
Well,
don't remember that at all.
No, but this takes place during Vietnam, and soldiers who go to war went there because they believed in what they were doing, because they thought that it was the right thing to do, because they had an infantile perspective on life.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done being at war, you don't have those illusions anymore. You realize what it is. You realize what war is, and I feel like that's the arc.
Well,
that we're taking on.
Well, the saving grace of these two guys, as bully as
I feel for them the way I feel for grunts in war.
Yeah, okay. As bully as they are, it's like they just want to accumulate bust just for their own personal gratification. They don't feel that they're cleaning up Los Angeles, all right, for the good people. They're not fighting the good fight. That's not where they're coming from. They just like hanging out with each other, talking shit, making fun of all the squares, and then doing well in their job, which means that they like make 3 busts a fucking day.
Yeah.
But it's about each other. They just like hanging out with each other. That's what it is. They just like cracking jokes, and they like having the power mad situation of having a badge and a gun where they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
They're not Superman. They're not coming from a moral high point.
Having said that, they'd like to bust the bad guy.
They like to bust the bad guys.
They like to bust the bad guy. Makes them feel good. Makes them feel like they're doing their job.
And constantly, at every point, they're shown to be assholes and intolerant. All right, when they argue with like a desk sergeant about this or that, you're always on the desk sergeant side.
Yeah.
When they argue with anybody in the police force about something, they're always taking this hardline approach that seems inappropriate for the moment.
And you just don't realize
they're just being fucking hemorrhoids to the good guys, to the bad guys, to the cops, to the robbers, to the people on the streets. They're a hemorrhoid to everybody.
Well, you know what?
Except each other.
And he almost makes the point, if they just played the game,
Yeah.
they would have a cigar. If they just played the game, they would have a promotion.
Yeah.
If they just played the game and just rolled with it and weren't gratified by just busting.
Okay, so after I have now spent a nice series of time explaining why politically the movie is wanting and textually, subtextually, every aspect about the movie is problematic. By the way, when I use the word problematic, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like that adjective. I consider all my characters problematic, and that's a good thing. All right, but
conflict is what characters are born for.
Yes, exactly. And I don't have to be down with my characters' goals. Okay, but in this case, though, why am I still championing this after I've made such a case of how almost corrupt the whole enterprise seems to be morally? For 2 big giant reasons. How fucking funny Elliott Gould and Robert Blake are together in every goddamn scene from the beginning of the movie to the fucking end. And the masterful set piece explosion of Peter Hyams' action scenes where he is he bursts himself for what he will do, and in birthing himself, he predates Hong Kong's action cinema
completely.
Of the 80s. I mean,
we see scenes in this.
This is pre-John Woo in every fucking way and form. All the cop movies of Hong Kong of the 80s, they have their forefathers in busting.
Completely.
Even more so than Freebie and the Bean, which is filled with a ton of set pieces itself. Because Freebie and the Bean, it's a more thoughtful movie. All right? So everything is integrated more. All right. Here it's just you lurch from one action set piece to the next and to the next. And the movie never gets in the way. Right?
Well, also there's an enthusiasm to impress.
Yeah. That's really well said.
Peter Hyams is coming out of TV. This is his big feature film. Yeah. It's an action film. He's got freaking Elliott Gould. He's got UA backing him 100%. And he's like
Chardoff and Winkler, two of the biggest producers in the business.
I am gonna make this movie move. And how does he do it? He does it with a freaking Matthews doorway dolly. Yeah. Okay, so just to put this in perspective, a doorway dolly is something that most grip trucks have on. It's a small dolly
that doesn't need tracks.
Yeah, it has soft wheels. and it's sized just enough so that it can fit through your standard small doorway. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it nice to be able to do, small moves in a room.
You can go down a hallway, especially in a government building. You can go down a hallway and the characters can turn and go into a room, and you can either be in front of them as they go through the room, or you can be behind them as you follow them in.
Yeah, exactly. And because you have no track, you don't have to worry about catching the track.
Yeah, you can go left, you can go right,
shot.
You can make turns. Yeah.
And so doorway dolly is a really handy thing. It's not like it tends to get underused, but in this film in particular, I started noticing he's using the dolly in every single scene. This is pre-Steadicam.
Yeah, this is pre-Steadicam. Steadicam will come out in 76 with a Bound for Glory. So he's using the doorway dolly the way Kubrick uses the track and tracking shots in Paths of Glory.
Yeah.
And he's using the doorway dolly the way other directors will just use the Steadicam for the next 6 years. You know,
exactly. And while Kubrick limits himself to 0-point perspective and generally reverse tracking, Peter Hyams basically goes into any location he's at and says, okay, how am I going to maximize my location? Mm-hmm. The actors that I have, my backgrounds, and my props. There's a scene in a restaurant where a birthday cake is coming out. Okay, so
that shot is so fucking good.
It's simply incredible, and it's indicative of every single shot in the film where, he starts on the cake and I think you're in the kitchen, and then he uses his doorway dolly to do what looks like a super complicated move, but is actually just a kind of long back, a little zig with a little zig in it, a long back and forth. And he follows that birthday cake through this room, making use of everything and eventually landing it at the table with our lead
landing
guy.
it at the bar, and then proceeds to slowly zoom in as they proceed to have an entire scene that finishes to its conclusion at the end of the zoom.
And every single shot was like that. And if it wasn't just like, we are going to run that doorway dolly, like we're going to put a freaking V8 motor on that doorway dolly and drive it down the hallways in this LA apartment building. I mean, I've never seen a doorway dolly going that fast.
Yeah.
You are jamming through it. There are actors that are running as fast as they can run and
literally running as fast as they can run in a way that you would never be able to keep up with them with a real dolly on a track.
Like those dolly grips that are doing it, those guys deserve an award. The guys who worked on this film, because it's some incredible work. And every single shot, once you start watching it, you start realizing it's another doorway dolly shot. Mm-hmm. It's another doorway dolly shot. Oh, he's going sideways here. Well, now he's going backwards. Now he's going forwards. He's just using it in every, and it's almost like, if you have a crane and you're just like, you know what? I've got a crane. I'm going to use my crane.
Yeah. Oh, no. He uses the doorway dolly the way Max Ophuls uses the crane.
Yeah,
all right, okay,
exactly.
So you start with the crane and then you figure, now what do I want to do?
Yeah. And because of that, he ends up making this massively energetic movie. And that's one of the reasons it feels like it's the endeavoring, to impress that you see in those Hong Kong movies where they don't have the resources either, and so they're using like a wheelchair or whatever they have, and to get that effect.
They can get
for sure. But they're using whatever tools you have on your small film to make it a big movie.
But there's other connections with Busting in a Hong Kong 80s action film, because the script is pretty fun, but it's not a very literate script. It is just going from incident to incident to incident. And that's what most Hong Kong movies are about. And it's all about the action scenes. And it's all about visually capturing and creating these action scenes. So, he's not coming from a Don Siegel point of view, where he's like, these action scenes are being born out of the story. No, it's about one big sequence after another. It's like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
It's not about an overriding theme. It's a greatest hits album. And like a Hong Kong action movie, it's held together by two, magnetic stars. All right, that their starshine is carrying you through the whole film. Now, I haven't seen him in many years, but I was very friendly with Robert Blake, and Blake never liked Busting.
Yeah, I heard that he called the movie a mistake.
Well, I remember he didn't like Busting because he ragged on it in his Playboy interview. In the 70s. And he's like, oh man, I don't even remember what that stupid story was about.
Was he doing Beretta by that point?
Yeah, he was doing Beretta. He was already a superstar.
So he had a huge superstar hit all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Where he's the star.
Yeah, and so he's sort of like, I don't even remember what that stupid story of Busting was about. On an average episode of Beretta, we have a better storyline than Busting does. All right, so now the thing about it, though, is he's wrong. He's wrong. And the reason he's wrong is because he's coming from an older place. He didn't think the script was that terrific. And so he thinks an average episode of Beretta has more story. And actually, Beretta was a very story-filled show. All right. So, yeah, an average episode of Beretta will have a better story than Busting. But that's not where Peter Hyams is coming from. He's coming from doing these action set pieces that just thrill one after another after another. And so then I brought that up to Robert Blake, and he was like, well, that sounds pretty true, because Peter Hyams spent all his time with Hal Needham, the stunt coordinator. It's like that was who he was making the movie with. He was making the movie with the stunt coordinator.
It shows.
And that's why the movie is so fucking amazing.
Yeah, it shows.
It's just one great action sequence after another. And not only that, he's trying to do things that hadn't been done before. So he's sitting there with Hal Needham figuring this shit out.
Yeah, that market scene.
Oh, market scene. The market scene.
That's when you realize.
Almost better. Let's not even mention, other than say there's a market scene. Let's not even talk about it. Let's just, if you want to go watch it and just have it just play out. Let's not ruin that at all. But I think that's one of the best action scenes of the 70s.
On the DVD, Elliott Gould, just to say how obsessed Peter Hyams was while making this movie, like this is going to be his big film. He comes into Elliott Gould's trailer and says, "If you fuck up my picture, I'm going to throw acid in your eyes." And look me in the eyes. I want you to see that I'm serious.
Peter Hyams is the man.
Yeah,
that's the fucking man.
That's like Hal Needham probably was like, you go in there and you tell those fucking actors, like who's in charge.
You tell those pansies, all right, that they better hump their ass through this fucking 5-minute shot, all right, with all this shit going on. Many years ago, we had a Robert Blake retrospective. We kind of did was a joint production between the Silent Movie Theater and the New Beverly. And Blake came down for it. And so he came and saw a bunch of the films. And I had a 16 millimeter print of Busting, and we showed Busting. We showed another film he did called Corky. And many years later, when he watched Busting with the audience, and after I had talked about it a little bit, he now liked Busting. He saw it for what it was. He thought the action scenes were really fucking terrific. All right, now he's not fighting over, well, why isn't there more heft to a story? Why doesn't one of these guys have a wife? I mean, none of that stuff.
You go to the premiere, and the final shot is like a 2-minute shot of, well, I shouldn't say it, but it's not of you.
Well, he kind of knew that. Part of the thing about the movie, though, was it's interesting because it's set up as a buddy cop movie, but the movie is definitely leaning more towards the Elliott Gould character, almost as if it's supposed to be Gould and Blake was just supposed to be this his like a more of a Roy Scheider kind of character from French Connection, more of a supporting character, but then their teamwork became so much that Blake worked his way above the title. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but it seems like it to some degree. So originally, it was going to be Elliott Gould and Ron Liebman. Some people out there will remember from his big role as a union organizer in Norma Rae. You remember him as he's that dick soldier in Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yeah.
He's George Siegel's brother, runs naked through the park in Where's Papa, and a lot of things. Anyway, so apparently, according to Robert Blake, they tell Elliott Gould, so we cast Ron Liebman as the other guy. And Elliott Gould goes, no! You can't cast another tall Jew next to me. All right. No, cast that short Dago guy. All right.
Short Dago.
And I love that the short Dago guy is Robert Blake.
And I love that both of them are so obviously based on Irish people like Keneally and Patrick Farrell.
And so apparently, Robert Blake told me that, so he starts preparing for the movie. He goes, oh, wow, I don't think my character's that good. I don't think this is this interesting a character. I said yes to a movie where I'm the shitty one of a duo.
Yeah.
And he said that he actually got together. He said he did this a lot. He would get together with Strother Martin whenever he had a hard time, and they would read the script together and they would go over it. And he said Strother Martin was like saying, okay, you're thinking about, you are supporting Elliott Gould in this. So make that's the point of your character. You're all about your partner.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of your partner. That's your job. You're almost like the wife. That's your motivation for every scene. That's the motivation for your character. Your partner's a little out of control. You need to rein him in.
That's really good advice.
And that's really good advice. And you see him doing that throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, you completely. And in fact, when he finally takes a hit, that's when you really feel it because of that.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who's kind of like calming to his partner.
The thing that makes their interplay so great, and this is kind of interesting because, okay, even though Peter Hyams is a very good scriptwriter, and even though he wrote the script, it looks like he was down with the whole idea of like, okay, this dialogue is more or less perfunctory. I need to hire two really fun, cool actors who will come in and then just jazz the whole thing up. They'll come up with little bits of business on their own. They'll come up with little jokes. They'll come up with little wordplay. They'll work on their patter back and forth, and that will make it all happen.
And I can go hang out with Hal Needham.
Yeah, and I can hang out with Hal Needham. And in the case of both Elliott Gould and Robert Blake, he picked two fantastic actors that are really, really good at, knowing the scene, but, there's the dialogue on the scene, but then now as actors, we're going to riff and we're going to come up with stuff and we're going to come up with our own pieces of business and we're going to enliven it. And no take will be the same. Every take will have a different thing.
Well, then you add Alan Garfield to that mix.
Then you add Alan Garfield, who actually is maybe the best actor in the Screen Actors Guild at that time when it comes to that type of acting.
When it comes to improv.
The rudimentary dialogue that he's given is simply the starting point for him to go and then just write the scene in the playing of it. Bruce Dern does that a lot.
Yeah.
They're always called a Dernsey when he does it. But Alan Garfield is so great at it that it's not just even improvisation, it's writing. He is writing the scene. And Blake is good at writing the scene. And Elliott Gould is writing the scene. And when they match up with Alan Garfield, who's maybe the best at it in the world, it's just like fireworks.
Yeah.
It's absolute fireworks. It's such absolute fireworks that what happens in the course of the movie is they want to bring down this vice kingpin. And so they start like targeting him constantly in these like little mini raids that they do that just embarrass him and fuck him over. And at some point in the second half of the film, you start feeling sorry for Alan Garfield.
Well, it starts when they go to his like strip club or his go-go club, and Sid Haig, who's like his enforcer, who looks like the evil enforcer, his bodyguard guy. He goes up to them and he's like, "Hey guys, you're not supposed to be here." Like he's actually super polite to them.
Oh yeah.
He's never mean to them.
No,
they never show the villains doing anything that would be construed as illegal, even or mean.
Yeah.
Sid Haig is actually like he's politely confused why they're there. Like, why are you guys doing this?
Yeah, they're just not playing right. They're bulls in a china shop.
You're not supposed to be here, guys.
Have you ever wondered what the lead singer of Smash Mouth, Zach Goody, feels about new versus old guys in music and cinema? Or how photographer Toasty Cakes makes his cinematic discoveries? What about the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes editor Jacqueline Coley and what she considers to be the new Hollywood shift of the streaming era? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these very questions. Starting on October 26th, I have a new guest on the mic every week. Yes, every Thursday, hear your favorite filmmakers, photographers, actors, models, and more talk about a topic that is near and dear to their heart that they want you to know about. You'd be surprised at what people are interested in. The Gala Show premieres October 26th with new episodes every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts.
And Gala.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Quentin.
Did you watch Busting?
Yes, I did watch Busting. Okay, so if I walked into Video Archives, where would I find Busting? Would it be in the action section or would it be in the comedy
section? We didn't have
section?
an action section.
You guys
had a drama section.
So would this be in drama?
But
of course it would.
But we would sometimes put action films in the drama section. And
we didn't have it. Well, of course, we put action. We didn't have an action section.
Well, hold on. Would you put Running Scared in the drama section or in the comedy section?
That would,
Billy Crystal.
I would put that in the comedy section. It's more overtly a comedy.
Yeah, but this does kind of. I mean, this goes into the drama section, but because obviously it's a drama by the end.
Running Scared would definitely go in the comedy section under R's, and Busting would definitely go in the drama section under B.
Because I found this movie so funny. I was actually laughing out loud funny. My mom watched it with me, and we're sitting like in the middle of the day together, just laughing so hard at Elliott Gould and Robert Blake.
Because it's irreverent.
It's so funny. And then I look online, and it's not even tagged as a comedy. Mm-hmm. It's just tagged as drama and action. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, this is a comedy. It's so funny. Elliott Gould for me is like top tier hilarious in this movie, and I love
top tier
hilarious. I'm sitting there laughing. I don't know what it is about it. And Robert Blake with his cigarette always in his mouth.
Yeah, even when he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, even when he gets a hit, and
his face is mashed in like hamburger, and he's got like a cigarette.
Okay, that was a corny bit. Of course, you guys like that part.
Of course.
I indulge in some corny every now and then. It keeps things fun and interesting, and I liked it. This movie, it kind of shares a little bit of DNA. I mean, you talked about like the buddy movies. Uh-huh. It shares DNA with Partners, which comes much later, totally. 1982. But this is
so much so that Robert Blake is dressing the way Ryan Reynolds is supposed to dress in Partners.
Yeah. This would be a good double bill with Partners.
This would be a good double bill with Partners. Yeah.
But I like Busting so much better than I like Partners. Yeah. And you know what's also funny is that in the movie The In-Laws, they do the same gag with the dentist. Not like that he has a prostitute, but that he leaves his patient in the chair like while the whole scene is happening.
Right.
Like with the cotton in the mouth. And I just thought it's like just a weird crossover to have.
You know what's funny about that scene with the
gag?
dentist is when it first began, I thought, I felt so bad for her. I thought, this is some kind of weird situation. And then I realized, oh no, she's the one in charge. Yeah. And she's fine. Mm-hmm. And he's fine and everybody's fine. There's no crime occurring.
Well, one of the things that Busting also duplicates along with Freebie and the Bean is the TV movie that Starsky and Hutch was based on. All right, so the original TV movie, directed by Barry Shear with David Soul and Paul Michael Glaser playing Starsky and Hutch.
I mean, this is pretty much Starsky and Hutch.
It is pretty much Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, it's pretty much.
Busting is Starsky and Hutch.
It is pretty much Starsky and Hutch. The TV movie that they based the show on is really very good, but it's a little different from the TV show that happened, for the simple fact that in the TV show, they still like threw their weight around and they still busted the balls of all the criminals out there. But they were much, much nicer guys than they were in the TV movie. In the TV movie, they're exactly like these guys. They are strong-arming fucking everybody. They strong-arm everybody. They're complete fucking fascists. They're busting balls to bust balls. So, there's like a tremendous amount of DNA with the origin of Starsky and Hutch in this as well.
I'm really glad that we're watching another Peter Hyams movie because, to be honest, when we watched The Keep and The Relic, I feel like I was really unfair to Peter Hyams.
Of course you were! I still haven't gotten over it.
But, I mean, I love Outland. I said it on the Relic episode. I love Outland, so I was really excited to watch Busting, and Peter Hyams is like my brain felt like opened. Like, you guys have mentioned all these amazing sequences, like the sequence, which I'm going to call the Harold and Philip sequence, which is the courtroom where he reveals
Harold and Philip are
those are the two guys that are dressed, they're cross-dressing. And the camera work there, I also thought it was really compelling because you don't know who they're looking at. And you can assume it's from like the gay club last night. But when he finally reveals at the moment that they're laughing at them and they're like, what's your real name? Like, that's not like your real name. It's Harold. Oh, it's Philip. Mm-hmm. And they're like cowering and holding each other. Yeah. Okay, it is a really powerful moment, for me at least. And I don't think it's about like the audience being like sorry versus not sorry for these guys. It's more just to show like these two people just went out to go have a night of fun. They're getting like shamed, attacked. It's terrible. And then the hooker comes in and she just gets let go.
Yeah.
That's the injustice that I feel like he's just trying to show is like these two people that have nothing to do. They weren't doing anything wrong. And here's the hooker who's just going to get let go because she's being represented properly.
That's a very compassionate reading of that scene that actually, when it comes to what happens in the scene, follows it very well. I don't see that type of compassion in the face of Robert Blake and Elliott Gould when I'm watching the movie.
I mean, Robert Blake, actually, after the scene, Elliott Gould goes up and beats up a pimp in the hallway.
Just walking down the hallway and just
like finds a black dude and beats him up.
A black guy in a red hat, I'm going to just unload my frustrations on you.
Yeah. I don't think it's like sympathy from the characters, but I think it's sympathy from at least Hyams. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an amazing sequence. I think all of it, the birthday cake, as you mentioned, is really, really well done. All the reverse tracking is so good.
That introduction to the nightclub scene was like Michael Bay was shooting it. It was like Michael Bay showed up for the day to shoot.
There's so many good
that scene is so... We noticed how good that shot was at the beginning.
Yeah.
We started talking about it in the middle, and it still had a whole second half of the shot to go.
Yeah.
But it's just cracking me up. As much as like I'm looking at the box right now, just as much as this undeniable image of Elliott Gould and Robert Blake with their guns and
their badge.
And their badge.
And his big mustache.
Gould's big mustache and his wool cap. For some reason, since we've been talking for the last 15 minutes, I just keep seeing Alan Garfield running around in his hospital gown with his ass hanging out. Yeah. And how fucking cute he looked running around there, and how funny he is. And like, it's such a hysterical image, as if I needed another reason to like Alan Garfield's Mr. Big. All right. That gave it to me.
Well, also the fact that they're running around and kind of giving him like a little, they're harassing him so much.
Well, they're messing up his birthday. They light his car on fire.
Yeah. And then it culminates with them lighting his car on fire at his birthday. And and then suddenly when he has his medical episode, we're kind of with it.
Yeah.
It was a really good way of obfuscating the plot that's going on.
What's weird is, as little story as Busting has, it actually, some of the story it does have overlaps with Freebie and the Bean.
Yeah.
All right, Freebie and the Bean starts with them going through the trash. Yeah. All right, trying to find evidence against their Mr. Big. Well, that eventually happens in Busting, too. It doesn't start there. But also the same thing. The Mr. Big and Freebie and the Bean ends up having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And then that's what brings Busting to a conclusion. Now they have it all plays out differently. But, for two movies that are almost opposite numbers of each other, for them to have two of those plot points is pretty,
One of my favorite lines in the entire movie, because you were talking about how Sid Haig is actually like really nice to them the whole time.
Yeah. He's like actually super polite to them.
When they're in the hospital and they've kind of busted in, and the nurse is like, "Excuse me, sir, you guys can't be here. It's family only." And then I think Elliott Gould says, "Well, that's not immediate family. That's a creep." He's talking to Sid Haig.
That's a creep.
I felt so bad for Sid Haig in that moment. So I bought my VHS tape. It is a MGMA box, just like Quentin's, the one that they got. Did you say that came from Video Archives, or was it Eddie Brandt's?
Eddie Brandt's.
So just like the one Eddie Brandt had, mine cost me $5.
Excellent.
Oh, and it came from Family Video.
Tatum and Kristy, together for the first time in the true spirit of hot-blooded American competition. Tatum O'Neal.
I love you, Mr. Bowser.
Kristy McNichol.
I'm not a woman, Randy.
In the motion picture that suddenly grows up into something very special. Little Darlings.
Little Darlings with co-hit Busting will be playing on January 10th and January 11th at the New Beverly Cinema. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For tickets and even more information, go to thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema. Always on film.
Okay, and we're back, and we're moving on to our second movie on this episode, which is from Paramount Film Studio, and even more importantly, Paramount Home Video, and it is the film Little Darlings, directed by Ronald Maxwell, that could be found under the L in comedy section. And Roger is holding the Video Archives box in his hot little hand as we speak, and he is about to read the back. Take it away, Avery.
So this is one of the Paramount Home Video catalog title boxes, which I think are just absolutely beautiful presentations.
As we've said many times before, from the people that brought you lipstick.
True to the artwork of the film, true to the one sheets of the film. And this one, has that one sheet of Kristy McNichol and Tatum O'Neal back to back in their little camps, camp T-shirts.
The Hungry Wolf Camp or whatever it's called.
Lone Wolf?
Lone Wolf.
Little Wolf? Little Wolf or
Little Wolf Camp.
Little Wolf. The
Camp Little Wolf. Camp Little Wolf.
I'm sorry, but you can't be a hungry wolf when you are 14 years old as a girl.
Yeah, that's for across the lake. That's the boys' camp. These Paramount boxes, as you remember, they fold open.
Yes.
They're just lovely.
They have their own little sleeve that they sit in.
They all go nicely together. This was tape 2787 from the Video Archives collection, and the back, along with 3 photos from the movie, 3 stills from the film, says, well-educated and well-traveled Ferris Whitney, Tatum O'Neal, is a child of privilege. Angel Bright, Kristy McNichol, is cool, streetwise, and tough. Little Darlings brings them together for a season of summer camp, fun, and friendship, and rivalries. With bets placed and money at stake, the other campers choose sides as Ferris and Angel are goaded on. Whoever loses her virginity first wins. Amid the classic camp conflicts, food fights, sneak-outs, and crushes, Angel and Ferris deal with their own growing sexual awareness. 1980, Paramount Home Video. Okay, so I saw this movie in theaters.
I saw it in the theater when it came out as well.
Like pretty much everybody probably did.
Everybody our age probably saw this film when it came out.
Yeah, I mean, this was, apparently this is a time in America when the obsession was 14-year-olds must lose their virginity. And
I think it's more of a situation about the fact that from the early 70s on, the point of view of most coming of age movies was guys losing their virginity.
Yeah.
All right. So that became the issue in movies in the 70s when it came to coming of age, and this is like maybe one of the first times that it's all made about girls.
Yeah.
All right, girls coming of age. Now, the fact that it's short of prepubescent girls, all right, is what gives the film this contraband kind of feeling about it.
But that was just what was coming naturally back in 1980.
Yeah. Teenagers losing their virginity, that was the subject of most coming-of-age movies. Mm-hmm. But the fact that this is all about young girls makes it different.
Completely. Franklin Browner wrote a little something about it. He says, in 1980, our cultural preoccupation was with 14-year-old girls getting laid. Now, this may sound sordid and sleazy, but somehow in 1980 it wasn't, I assure you. It was simply an awkward part of life. And awkward is the key adjective in use at Camp Little Wolf, where a game of deflowering is at play between the rich and feminine Ferris, Tatum O'Neal, and the punky and boyish Angel, McNichol, whose riveting performance capably carries the heart of the movie out of its adolescence. Little Darlings reminds us to take life slow, and that one can win the race and still have lost. An A for adolescence.
An A, wow.
I actually didn't grade it, and I had to think quickly, and I was like, A for adolescence.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing, though. I think it's pretty easy to dismiss the film as some perv fantasy, all right, about a young prepubescent girl losing their virginity. And it's really easy for adults now to say that. And that would be an easy enough thing for adults back then to say that. However, what is missed in that, when you go back to the time when the movie came out in 1980, is the fact that, except for film critics, I doubt any adults saw this during the evening shows. They're not buying a ticket to see this. This was seen by the kids it was made for. This was made for kids that are pretty much the same age as the girls who make up the cast of this movie. And that audience loved this movie.
Well, and also that audience is going through this.
Yes.
And still that audience is going through this. This is something that is like it's a fact of life that people go through. And the movies back then approached that through naturalism. You called it when you said this is like an all-girls like Bad News Bears.
It's I think that's obviously
that kind of vibe, that almost like that fun.
It's obviously jumping off from the Bad News Bears, or the idea that was this big hit, one of the biggest hits of the year. Movie's stars, the big stars of Bad News Bears, Tatum O'Neal. But I think this was completely designed from the idea of Bad News Bears. Okay, so let's do a girls' Bad News Bears. Yeah. Well, okay, so and I literally was exactly the age of the characters in the movie, because I think me and Tatum O'Neal are the same age.
Yeah.
And I've had this monster crush on her after I saw her in the Bad News Bears. So I made it a point to, when a new Tatum O'Neal movie was coming out, that was like I had a date with her almost. All right,
and at the time that this came out, you were either like into Kristy McNichol or Tatum O'Neal.
Well, but I wasn't into Kristy McNichol because I had this big crush on her. But I watched her on her TV show Family. I watched her every week. So I saw the movie when it came out, and I thought it was very, very funny. I enjoyed it very much. The whole audience that I was with enjoyed it. The kids at school, they talked about it. They enjoyed it. And then I kind of forgot about it for the next 30 or so years. Then about 12 years ago, something like that, I was dating a girl in Austin, a really cool girl named Julia Irving. Hello, Julia, if you're listening. We were looking through my video collection, deciding what to watch. And she was like, we got to watch Little Darlings. So it's a classic. We got to watch Little Darlings. So we watched it, and we had this fantastic screening. But the point being, though, was I had not realized how iconic Little Darlings was for girls who saw it at the right age, with an 80, or maybe they saw it on cable television, or they saw it on video, from 84 on or whatever. I did not know the pop cultural purchase that it had for young girls who saw it around its time. And that pop culture purchase was very significant. They love the movie. They know just the way we know Bad News Bears. And know the names of all the different characters, and know all the jokes, and know the entire dynamic. She did about the movie. Even the movie has a fantastic soft rock jukebox soundtrack to it that is just kind of perfect. And no matter how many times I've seen the movie, I can never remember the opening song. I can never remember the closing song, even though they were popular hits in the day. But almost their innocuousness, the fact that you can't remember which songs they were, but they just kind of fit perfectly for the close and perfectly for the beginning, it almost just shows the appropriateness of them.
Blondie song in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah. Well, that's a one way or another. Yeah. But I was really taken with watching the movie with her about how iconic this had become for girls. And I can see it. It's right there. Of course it's going to be iconic, especially if you saw it at the right kind of age.
Well, and it's a moral play on top of it all, with a fantastic kind of moral twist and a sort of moral discussion at the end of it. And it all feels really real and relatable. Mm-hmm. And what shocked me was when I was young, like a lot of kids my age, I was in love with Tatum O'Neal. Mm-hmm. I was less interested in Kristy McNichol, mostly because she kept appearing like on Teen Beat or Tiger Beat or whatever that magazine was.
Yeah. Well,
and I
was
just
a big thing at the time.
Hated that magazine. Uh-huh. And so for some reason I wasn't, but when watching the movie again, I was shocked at how good Kristy McNichol's performance is, and how deep her performance runs and goes, and how Ron Maxwell protects her and gives her the space she needs to find and discover that performance. I mean, you can feel his patience as a director, just allowing her to go and protecting her along the way. And she delivers this incredible, real, true, tragic performance. I was gripped by it while watching the movie.
It's very interesting because the characters are set up to be, there's There's the rich, spoiled one. There's the one from the projects, right? That's the tough smoking cigarettes. Where
she smokes too much is my only problem.
Yeah. She's smoking all the time. She's got a Levi jacket on, just as like Joan Jett before Joan Jett.
Yeah.
All right. Well, not before Joan Jett. That's around the Joan Jett time.
Yeah, she's like one of the runaways.
Yeah. She might as well be one of the runaways. Yeah. Now, here was the thing about the movie, though. While critics didn't care for it, they all recognized Kristy McNichol's performance.
Yeah.
And so every review had like a paragraph that just talked about, hey, Kristy McNichol is the real deal. And it is kind of surprising the depth that the movie takes when it comes to her character in the pretty much the last 45 minutes of the film. And one of the things that you brought up, there was like a take where she has
on the swing?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's a moment on the swing, I think I know what you're talking about, where this long extended take of her, where for a while she does this kind of dramatic pause, like her line delivery stops and she kind of looks off camera and she's looking, and then she finds it and she reels it in, and she digs deep, and it's like this whole movement. It's like it's like this silent movement that's occurring inside of her.
The movie stops to take in her reaction and Kristy McNichol's performance.
And I actually wondered, is that her just doing the performance, or have they cut some sound? Has the director talked to her in between, keep the camera rolling? It almost felt like they could have been doing like a little
I think as a
trick like that. And that could have been the case, but it's just that her performance is so
I think
gripping in that moment.
I think one of the things about it is, I don't know if it's a situation where the director is talking to her over the soundtrack and they're just dropping it out, but I'm positive that Kristy McNichol and Ron Maxwell created a liaison between director and actress. I think Ron Maxwell realized what he had when it came to Kristy McNichol, and I think he doubled down on directing her, and I think she accepted it.
He also realizes that she's the dramatic heart of the screenplay.
Yeah, and I think it is. I think it is a connection of just a director and an actor who have found each other in just the right way, and they are working in a symbiotic relationship.
And also, I mean, she is the dramatic heart of the film, and part of it is that this is made at a time when a tomboy was just a tomboy.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing of what is it to be a woman? Like, are you a woman yet? Mm-hmm. And there's the one like experienced
Rosanna Arquette one of
I think her name is Krista Erickson, if I'm not mistaken.
She was the phony Rosanna Arquette. At that time, there was Rosanna Arquette around the same age, and then there was this gal. And you never knew which one was which, but there was this phony Rosanna Arquette, and that's this girl.
And she's like the experienced, or we're to believe that she's experienced.
We're to believe, yeah. Well, remember, supposedly she's engaged.
Yeah, and she's exactly, and her kind of pushing the girls of, have you lost your virginity yet? Are you a woman yet? Mm. And this whole kind of this pressure that's there, and that she increases this pressure, and there comes a moment where the question gets asked, well, are you a lesbian? Mm-hmm. And it never actually gets answered. Mm-hmm. The question is never actually answered. But I'm watching Kristy McNichol because the fact that it's not answered, like in 1980, mm-hmm. it wouldn't have registered in me at all that it wasn't answered. Mm-hmm. Today, in 2022, I'm super conscious of her being pressured into this contest, in this situation. It gave me great anxiety as I was watching the film on her behalf. And when she is suddenly struggling in these moments with Matt Dillon, it's downright crushingly painful. It's hard to watch.
The idea that she actually might be gay nowadays is like a subtext that almost reads as text.
It doesn't really help matters much that Matt Dillon and her almost look alike, like brother and sister.
Well, that actually goes a long way to the thing, because it's like, okay, even if the character is gay, she wants to win the competition.
Yeah, she's highly competitive.
Yeah, okay. There does seem like a tragedy where it's like the tragedy, I think, in the script is supposed to be that these girls are being pushed to lose their virginity before they're ready due to peer pressure.
Yeah.
Now it reads like Kristy McNichol is being forced to have sex with a man out of peer pressure when that's not her intention whatsoever. But the thing that keeps going along with that is the fact that when she does choose somebody, she chooses Matt Dillon, who looks exactly like her. Okay. He looks more like her than Jimmy McNichol looks like Kristy McNichol. So it's like, so there's almost this subtext going on. Well, if I have to fuck a dude, I'll pick a dude who looks like me, but is prettier than me.
And then Matt Dillon, and actually the guys in this movie, Armand Assante and Matt Dillon, I think both do a really good job in a really difficult role to. I
think Matt Dillon is the weakest of the quartet. All right, he
comes across like a bag of hammers a little bit. However,
and he kind of doesn't. I think the script is above him. All right, he doesn't quite realize his role or what's supposed to be going on. At the same time, he looks like a dick asshole fucking kid at that age. All right, in another way, it might be the most authentic performance.
Well,
right,
he's like a total dick until he realizes that. Oh, wait a minute, you were a virgin, and then suddenly he starts treating her really weirdly gently. Suddenly he's kind of gently holding her and kissing her shoulder, and meekly almost.
And now Tatum O'Neal, her object of affection is the sexy counselor, played by Armand Assante. Now I was a huge Paradise Alley fan, so I was totally happy to see Armand Assante doing more things, and so I was very. He was one of the reasons I wanted to see the movie, was to see Armand Assante in something else.
It's a hard role that he has to do.
He's terrific in the film.
He's fantastic because he has to be sexy. He's got to be this leading man that's attractive to a 14-year-old girl.
He's got to play. He's got to play a 14-year-old. He's got to play a 14-year-old dreamboat, and he does a pretty great job of playing a 14-year-old girl's dreamboat.
And he's also self-effacing enough in it that he's kind of aware enough about who he is in it that he's look. A year from now, you're going to look at me. You're not going to be like, "What was I thinking?"
And frankly, I love his line reading when Tatum O'Neal brags that they had sex, but they didn't, and he confronts her about it. And it's actually his line reading I've remembered since the very first time I saw the movie. Of course we can talk about it. After all, we've been intimate, haven't we?
I also have to call out the cast of young girls, all of whom
which ultimately
are amazing in this movie.
Like the Bad News Bears, go a long way to making the entire movie work.
Let's start with the youngest.
Yeah.
There's this little girl, Penelope, played by an actress named Jen Thompson.
Yeah.
Who is the one who's too young to be there. She's the 10-year-old among the 14-year-olds.
Yeah, she's the 10-year-old that is she's way more mature than the other 10-year-olds. So she doesn't want to hang out with all the babies. So she wants to hang out with the older girls. She
completely distinguishes herself in this movie and comes across as a comic genius.
I know. She's almost like a little W.C. Fields in the movie. She's like a little W.C. Fields, the way she just keeps coming in with her little jokes, and she lands every laugh she wants. All right, every time they cut to her, it's always a crack up.
Also great and surprising. I couldn't believe my eyes to see Cynthia Nixon playing Sunshine, the hippie girl whose dad is like one of the vice cops in Busting or something.
Yeah. Okay. Cynthia Nixon is so funny in this movie. On one hand, she's giving a full-on comic caricature, but then you watch her in certain scenes, and even at that age, she's such a good, realistic actress. You see that even though it's a caricature she's playing, she's not playing it like a caricature. She keeps throwing these realistic moments, like when she sits, Indian style, all the time or whatever. And she just keeps making this ridiculous character not ridiculous.
She's passing out echinacea and doing hippie things.
She's so funny in the movie. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful character and a wonderful characterization.
Each of the little girls has her superpower, so to speak. And her superpower is her kind of hippie healing quality stuff. And Jen Thompson's Penelope is little tough talking girl. And then there's the kind of the agent of them, Alexa Kennan playing Dana. Who's sort of the...
Data, who is one of my favorite performances in the film. Actually, one of the funniest things in the entire thing is her little pep talk to Kristy McNichol. And she's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, and pacing.
And pacing. And she's never had sex, but she's like, okay, so remember this. And remember this. And don't be nervous. And, you know, she's like...
and you've got to be sure to do this. Why? I don't know. You just have to.
I don't know. I've just always heard that.
All of the girls in this are really well fleshed out, and all of the meat that they give Kristy McNichol is fantastic, you know, to work with, and it really gives her these like kind of deep conflicts and this kind of bittersweet ending where the two girls have come together in their competition.
I'm almost embarrassed to say how much it means to me, the final freeze frame at the end when the girls become friends. It's moving. It actually moves me. And then that soft rock song comes on, and it's exactly where I want to be. And I had a magnificent time watching this movie. You know, just listening to that song play over the freeze frame and the credits play. It's like, wow, what a time! What a time! It shouldn't work on me as good as it does, but it totally does. And we are back and joined by the lovely Gala Avery. Hello, Gala.
Gala,
Hey, Quentin.
tell
Hey, Roger.
us your insights, little darlings, because I bet they're
a little bit different than the
Yeah.
two 50-year-old men in the room.
Yeah.
You know, some out there may groan and roll their eyes when they read what this movie's about. And then they see that it's directed by a dude. And you can think, how can a guy tell my coming of age story, my losing of my virginity story?
Yeah, where was Penny Marshall?
Yeah. What Ronald Maxwell brings to this movie is so sensitive that it spoke to some deep part of me that I didn't even know existed.
Wow.
Until I watched this movie. And so respectfully, I don't have that much to say about this film because it spoke to that deep private part of me, which I feel like is the entire thesis of this movie, is that it's a private thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what they say in the end.
I am not Kristy McNichol, obviously. I'm not out there smoking cigarettes at 15, going to summer camp, like getting laid by Matt Dillon.
Well, I know you're not going to summer camp.
Yeah. Kicking guys in the balls to give you a problem.
I'm not stealing buses. But you know what? I lived a little bit of what Kristy McNichol lived because the girls in my middle school were so mean to me. Yeah. I was that like kind of weird girl in school. I mean, like I liked horror movies and I like ran with the guys and stuff. And I had these girls in the bathroom that would come up to me and be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Are you a lesbian?
You had Cinder the model.
Yeah, I had like those girls that came up to me and spread rumors about me throughout the school saying that I was a lesbian. Now, first off, even at that age, I know that there's nothing wrong with being gay. So who cares? It's like the wrong thing to make fun of me for. But it's really hurtful when you're like that 15-year-old girl and you're trying to figure yourself out.
When you get called anything.
When you get called
by
anything.
People,
and also something that's not true, but you know it's not wrong. And so you have to like defend yourself, but like you also know it's not wrong for that to happen. Yeah. But so like, I felt myself in Kristy McNichol. And when she and Matt Dillon finally have sex together and like you just see Tatum O'Neal and she's all like, she hasn't had sex, but she's like living this fantasy of love. She's
still in the
with her teacher. And then you see Kristy McNichol and she says, it was like you could see right through me. Yeah. It wasn't like what I expected. Man, that line, that was an amazing line. That was an amazing moment.
Well delivered by Kristy McNichol.
Well delivered by Kristy McNichol. And she put my coming of age story into words that I don't think I could ever put into words for myself. And it was really powerful for me to watch.
Wow.
Like everything that you guys have talked about, like the gang. The gang is so amazing. Like this, like that's what I was like when I was watching. I'm like, haha, the gang. I love this movie. I love when they go steal all the condoms and they're like they take the entire.
That's one of the best. That's one of the best comedy bits.
It's a real adventure.
When they send Penelope.
And for those that haven't seen it yet, they send Penelope, who's like the littlest one, through the window of the boys' bathroom to get condoms for the girls so that they can have safe sex because it's not just on the pills around, but it's not just on the girls. Now, she can't get the condoms out, so she rips the entire machine off the wall, and the girls take it back with them and destroy it in the forest and are like screaming with glee as they open up condoms once they've ripped it open, and they're like blowing them into balloons, and it's so funny. And then eventually one of the girls' moms finds it in the drawer at home, and it's so funny. Now, the gang is like what I was enjoying during the movie, but it's like it's Kristy McNichol's performance that has stayed with me afterwards, and that I just keep thinking about her.
It's a pained performance.
It's a pained performance. Now, Tatum O'Neal and Armand Assante, he has such a difficult job in the movie because he is like playing what could be a pedophile, but he's trying.
He hasn't done anything.
That's what I mean. He hasn't done anything, but it's like everyone else, like when you see like, and that's the whole point, I think, of him calling her out in the end, because she's kind of told all the girls, like, oh, we had sex. And he's like, this like makes me look like I'm a pedophile. Like, I can lose my job. I'm like the high school French teacher.
But he loves her also. Like, he loves that girl. He doesn't want to deflower her and ruin her.
Yeah, and exactly. He doesn't want to do what Matt Dillon does to Kristy McNichol.
Yeah.
Which is Kristy McNichol sitting alone on the floor, realizing
well, he's
that
also not a horny boy who's just trying to, get another notch on his on his airplane.
But I love what Tatum O'Neal says to him when she says, "Can I ask you something personal? What sign are you?" That's like so 15-year-old girl. That's still 26-year-old girl. I'm still asking guys, what sign are you? Yeah. This movie captures this really special coming of age story that I didn't think it was possible to like artfully tell the story of these two 15-year-old girls losing their virginity without it being like a perverted fantasy of some dude. I don't know. It did something I didn't think it could be done.
And then like, yes, you can get lost in the drama that Kristy McNichol brings to the film through her very open performance. But at the same time, the movie is a laugh fest.
Oh my God,
for the most
so
part,
funny.
Except for like a couple of moments, you laugh from the beginning to the end.
And I think it's because the movie makes you feel comfortable. Because you start laughing, and then you're still laughing, and then all of a sudden you're at the end where you're on the swing set with Tatum O'Neal and Kristy McNichol. And they're sitting there, and Tatum O'Neal hasn't really told her yet that she's lying. And she finally reveals to her, like, oh, we didn't have sex. And that moment is so painful to watch because all Kristy McNichol's character wants, all Angel wants, is someone to be there with her. That she's not alone, because that's what she tells Matt Dillon is, I feel so alone. I feel so lonesome right now. Even when he's like, I think I love you, baby. She's like, I feel so lonesome. And she thinks that she has Tatum O'Neal that's in the same exact boat as her. And then it just is revealed to her that like she doesn't have anyone. She's all lonesome. And it's such a powerful moment. I think every girl, I think every guy, I think everyone should watch this movie. It's just that good.
It's terrific. Now, I'm going to read to you a review of Little Darlings that does not agree with us whatsoever. All right. And this is from the April 1980 issue of Films in Review. Little Darlings. Virginity apparently is no longer standard girls' camp gear. Pack the calamine lotion, sew the name into the panties, but travel light. Leave behind your virtue. That, at least, is the contention of the imbecilic and annoyingly sloppy piece of cinema called, ironically I imagine, Little Darlings. A pair of 15-year-olds thrown together at Lone Wolf Camp one July are racing to see who can lose it, quote unquote, first, responding to the peer pressure of their unattractive clutch of bunkmates. The Carpe Diem theme has never looked more pearly and salacious. These lilies have festered long before their rosebuds were ever gathered. A sort of meatballs and halter top, Little Darlings is not only ugly thematically, it is a mess technically. And then he goes on, and that was Jack.
A mess technically.
Yes. That was Jack Curry of Films in Review.
Well, Jack Curry, I respectfully disagree with you.
I was going to say, is that Franklin Browner writing in there?
He liked it. Franklin Browner liked it.
Franklin Browner loves it.
You know, actually, though, that review, though, reminds me, though, that their camp is called Lone Wolf Camp. And it's like Kristy McNichols is the lone wolf. And you know what kills...
Is it Lone Wolf? Or
I think they just said Lone Wolf.
Yeah, but I don't know he's right about that.
Lone Wolf, Little Wolf. And you know what kills the wolf is the tomahawk. And that's what the boys' camp is called.
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah.
And so it's like she's that lone wolf, she's that lone little wolf, and he's that tomahawk. And he's just coming in ready to poison.
Okay, so let's just... I'm going to get this straight, though. Okay, so you're like Kristy McNichol. but you're not smoking cigarettes. You're not stealing buses. You're not stealing canoes and running off and just like stealing a guy.
You're not like, hey,
man.
Randy.
Hey, Randy, hop in here, all right? As you just whisk Randy away.
No, I'm not. But you know what? I think inside of every girl, there is a Kristy McNichol. Yeah. I think where you're sitting there by yourself and you feel that so lonesome.
Is there also a Tatum O'Neal?
And there is also a Tatum O'Neal who's asking...
Who's just wants to live in the fantasy.
Who just wants to live in the fantasy of pure love.
Oh, my wife. Daniela is absolutely the Tatum O'Neal character. Yeah. She is definitely not the Kristy McNichol character. She is absolutely Ferris.
But I think
married Ferris in the end.
Yeah. I think there's a Ferris and I think there's an angel inside of all of us because there is that girl that wants to just like live in the fantasy. You want to ask something personal. What's your sign? You want him to be a Leo. Mm-hmm. You want your French teacher to be like, oh, I'm a Leo, and be like, ooh.
And she's just into the romance.
And she's just into the romance. And you know what? And that's 100% okay. And there's also that Kristy McNichol inside of you where you're sitting on the ground and you're thinking, man, this is not what I was told it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I feel so alone right now. No one else out there understands what I feel like.
And it's irreversible.
And you've been kind of told by this little bitch, which I love her, but this girl in this rat costume that like what it's going to be like.
She is a girl in a rat costume.
She is a girl in a rat costume.
That is what she is.
And there is one of those girls that every girl out there knows one of these girls. If you don't know her, you are her, and that's a problem. But you know this girl, and she is like out there to ruin your life because she's there to make you think that you're not the same as everyone else and you're the different one. But you know what?
And she gets all the other ones to basically
to lie.
Yeah, and to rally against. Yeah,
because in the end,
and misrepresent themselves.
Themselves. And you know what? This movie, you just be who you are, and it's okay to be who you are, and just take things at your own pace.
and take it slow. There's no rush.
Little Darlings, female coming of age classic.
And you know what? You guys are in luck because this movie is available for free on the Internet Archive. All you got to do is just go to the Internet Archive and type in Little Darlings 1980 and you can watch it for free. Or you can get a VHS tape. I got mine. It's a re-release. So I don't have this beautiful chiclet box or gatefold as they're actually called.
Gatefold.
I got a 1992 re-release. It's in a big red box and I got it for $7.99.
Hi, I'm talking to all you bachelor guys out there. My name is Sylvia Christel. Remember me from Emmanuel, that naughty French film? I'd like you to come and see me in the flesh in my new film. It's called Julia. I'm told it's very sexy. In fact, some people call it the ultimate erotic experience. Why don't you come along and see me this week and bring your girlfriend?
So we're back, and now we're on to the third film of our triple feature, and that is straight from Video Gems. And it is the German erotic film Julia, starring Sylvia Kristel. And it says on the box, first Sylvia Kristel was Emmanuel. Now she's Julia. And I'm handing it over to Roger to read the box.
Now, I have a different Video Gems box. It's also a Video Gems box, but this is just a normal, everyday, what do you call these?
Just a
paper box.
Paper box, yeah.
A vertical slide paper box.
What he's talking about is we have two different videos in front of us. I have an old beta one, but it has the old school Video Gems clamshell box. And then this is obviously one done.
Yeah, like a vinyl printed onto the vinyl of the clamshell.
Yeah, that's why Video Gems their boxes were amazing.
Quality box. And so
you've got a cheapy one that they did obviously 5 years later.
I've got a cheapy, but it's an Eddie Brandt's. And at the front, it says, Sylvia Kristel is Julia in her first adventure. Did they make other Julias after this?
No, I think they're making a reference to her being a virgin.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right. And because the byline...
Gala could have told you
And the byline is, and I should have known that, because the byline is, the first time can be the best time. Sylvia Kristel's back as Julia, and she's doing things that she'd never think of doing as Emmanuel. In this erotic adventure, Julia tries desperately to lose her virginity amidst the quirky residence of a posh Swiss villa. Unfortunately, besides a strange pianist who composes in the nude and a pair of lustful lovers with a taste for whipped cream, there are only two candidates suitable for her deflowering. But Patrick, a naive boarding school pupil, has cold feet, and Ralph, Patrick's father, has his hands full with his own mistress for the moment. Before long, it's a breakneck race through the sheets between father and son as Julia weaves her uniquely seductive spell and creates a most unusual family affair. If you liked Sylvia Crystal as Emmanuelle, you'll love her as Julia, a girl who proves that the first time can be the best time. Color, rated R, and running a nice, clean, efficient 83 minutes.
Now, one of the things that the back of the box is fudging a little bit about is making it sound, which is understandable because Sylvia Crystal is how they're selling the entire movie, is the movie's not about Julia. It's about the young boy in the movie named Patrick. And so the film starts when Patrick's on a train and he's going to spend apparently like the summer with his father. His father and his mother are divorced and they're
separated.
They're separated, and they definitely have big issues with each other. And so Patrick is going to spend some time with his dad.
It's actually really funny because he says his mother. He's like, my mother. She just wants to sleep with the cash register because she runs the business part of their thing, and so she's just consumed with business. And
Patrick's this horny boy. And he's on this. And he's a little weirdo. He's kind of a creep.
He's a little like overly respectful.
But there's a creepy aspect about him. He's a little bit of a crumb.
He's
all right,
Swiss.
You're
he's
not
Swiss.
You're not really supposed to. You're not supposed to be digging him that much. So he's on the train, and then he sees this kind of hot, sexy woman riding in the car by herself as she's sleeping, but she's in a tight dress and she's got her thighs crossed and she looks really hot. So he just sits in that room with her and hopes something will happen. She wakes up. She takes a provocative, she doesn't say anything, but she takes a provocative...
starts lounging in front of him, almost like exposing herself a little bit.
Yeah, she kind of takes this provocative position in the chair. He can't handle it. He steps outside, and then another guy, all right, shows
like an
up.
older, more handsome businessman type guy
who can handle it, comes in there, closes the door,
shuts the curtains on
them. Then the chicken guy comes in. You see like that they've been making out. Then it also kind of plays out that like she leaves and goes to the bathroom, and then he goes into the bathroom and he fucks her in the bathroom. The stranger,
loudly.
The stranger.
As Patrick sits outside listening
to it and just eats his heart out. Yeah. All right, because that could have been him if he had
wanted it to be.
He wanted to be him if he had reacted quicker. It could have been him. Okay, now I said this early on. A thing about a lot of these European movies, these erotic films at this time, whether it be Italian or German, they oftentimes have a situation that by the time you get to the end of the movie, it plays out, oh, this could have been Fight Club. Because there is this aspect about like, okay, is she really doing this? Or is this just his fantasy?
Yeah.
What, this is what he thinks that she's doing in the bathroom. If he had, he's imagining that she's fucking the stranger. She's imagining she's having sex because that's the kind of girl he wants her to be.
Yeah.
And so could be a wild imagination. You're not quite sure. So then the train arrives. He goes and meets his father outside. And then it turns out his father's also waiting for his girlfriend to show up for the summer, and it turns out it's that girl.
Yeah. Played by Terry Tordell.
Yeah, who I think almost steals the show. So the thing about it is, okay, this could be a situation. It's not set up in a way where it's like, oh, now the son has all this goods on the girl, so he's going to drop dime on her and ruin the whole relationship with the father. Well, no, he doesn't even think about doing that. And she's even kind of playing it off a little bit. And so like, you're still kind of thinking, well, did that even happen? I mean, that might just be his overactive imagination. Yeah. That's who he wants the girl to be. Then the movie moves so far past that you just assume, well, I guess that's not the case.
Yeah.
only for it to turn out to be the case at the end. And then like all of a sudden the Ed shows up and I go, see, Roger, see, I told you this is like I did not know this was how it's going to end, but this is a standard thing in these kind of movies.
What I kind of loved about the film was that even though it's this European sex romp, there was this feeling of impending moral dread constantly hanging over not just our lead character because he's trying to lose his virginity or wanting to, but her as well, Julia as well. Everybody in it is, there's this kind of, everything is off a little bit.
Well, let's keep going on with setting up the scenario. Okay, so the scenario is the idea that Patrick and his father's new girlfriend are going to this
Swiss villa
that they're going to spend the summer in. Now, Julia is a neighbor girl. It's not for sure. Is she a neighbor girl? Is she, she could be the daughter of a maid in the area. You kind of almost get the impression that Julia isn't of the same class, maybe, as the rest of them. Yeah. But the boy has been there many times over the course of the years.
He knows her.
They've been sweethearts.
She lives somewhere else on the lake or wherever they live, and they both swim over to the same little platform every now and then. So they've known each other over the years. They've known each
other over the course of different summers. They've gotten to know each other, and they have their own.
And she's blossomed.
She's blossomed, and they have their own thing. And so they're really hitting it off and everything is going great. However, both Patrick is a virgin and Julia is a virgin. And Patrick is very nervous about the idea of being the one of taking Julia's virginity.
As young girls, well, it's also nerving. You're a young man and you've not done it before and you're...
If she had it,
full of anxiety that
it's a combination of one, the boy Patrick wants to have sex with a woman who has had experience his first time. So that's not Julia. And also he just feels insecure about the idea.
Yeah, and Julia would like for him to...
She wants him to be the guy.
She would be like, yeah, let's do it. And it doesn't happen.
And so finally, at some point during this idyllic summer in Switzerland, Patrick's father comes to Patrick and goes, so what's going on with you and Julia? Are you taking care of business? What's the deal? Yeah. Well, she's a virgin. Well, what's wrong with that?
Perfect.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, I'm not really sure.
You better hurry up or I'll get in there.
Yeah. Boy, I could take care of that. Yeah, easily, easy peasy. He goes, hey, but look, hey, maybe you don't want to deal with that. Maybe she's just too young. And then I'll get you a hooker. All right. You want to do that? I'll get you a hooker. So as things go on, then there is a moment where Julia and the father do get together. And then there is a moment where Patrick and his father's mistress do get together. Then there's this moment where they all get into a car and they go to some other place together.
Go to Verona.
Yeah, Verona. They go to Verona. Yeah, exactly.
The home of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, they go visit.
And they actually shoot at
that's
Juliet's actual balcony.
That's great. They go to Verona and so they're like, oh, wow, well, he's with her, but he's had sex with her. And then he's with her, but he's had sex with her. And it has this whole, this one's the father and this one's it's...
All the different permutations that are possible
are going on.
Romantically are being intertwined and in this kind of moral play.
And the thing about it is it just brings to mind an Eric Romer movie, very much so. I mean, especially Claire's Knee.
Yeah, we kept talking about it.
It brings to mind an Eric Romer movie, but as opposed to an Eric Romer movie that delivers, where they actually do have sex. And they do deliver tintillation. And they do deliver... erotica, and then it also plays a bit like those Richard Linklater, Julie Delpy movies, which are jumping off from the Eric Romer movies, because
the before film.
Well, frankly, the characters don't talk like Eric Romer characters; they talk more like Richard Linklater characters. Yeah. They're making kind of interesting pop culture references. I really, really dug this movie. I love this type of European erotica. It's my favorite form of erotica. I thought Sylvia Crusoe was terrific in the movie. I didn't like Patrick, but that's another one of the things I like about the movie. I like that they usually put creeps, in the middle of these movies. The boys coming of age are never like cool guys, all right? They're always something dubious about them.
And when they do finally have sex, it's very uncomfortable feeling. for a movie where all of the women are so liberated and just like free.
Yeah. And magnificent music. The movie has a fantastic soundtrack.
The movie's very well scored.
It's got a fantastic sound. And
very well shot.
It's got a great look. I mean, it looks like,
it looks like an Eric Romer movie, like a very well-crafted Eric Romer movie.
You could believe a Nestor Alejandro maybe shot this. The way, all the scenes on the lake, they're all the sun is catching the water, and there's all the light figments going on. It's this type of Italian-German erotica that actually takes itself fairly seriously that I like the most when it comes to erotic films. I give this stuff is just so much better than the way the Americans do it, and we're naming things that it's like an Eric Romer movie that delivers, all right, and it's but it's also very similar, and I think this was maybe a jumping off point. It's very similar to a Radley Metzger movie that doesn't quite deliver as much as a Radley Metzger movie delivers. He's my favorite of all the erotic directors for sure from that era.
And we're back. Gala.
Before I get into it, do I see a Franklin Browner review over there?
It is. I kind of spiked most of my thoughts from his review, but I'll go ahead and read it in my best Franklin Browner voice that I can muster up. Wouldn't it be nice to watch an Eric Romer movie and get something out of it? Or a change? If you feel thusly, Siri Rothmund has got you covered, even though the same can't be said for his actresses. Each one more beautiful than the next, and each one more hot to trot. No one can seem to keep their clothes on as they travel from one country house to another, in and out of linens, grinding up against each other with grimaced faces, as if their copulation was painful. It's a downright sexy romp, so why do I feel such an overwhelming sense of dread as I watch the bodies unfurl? As if Roman Polanski might take the directing reins for a while and steer the film into an abstract schizophrenic nightmare. Mercifully, that never happens. But there's no comfort that it might not happen either. And that's what makes the film compelling beyond its obvious Eurotrash titillation. A solid B for boner.
I think that encapsulates the movie pretty well. I was not such a big fan of this movie. First, I'm like, okay, that byline on that VHS box that you have.
Her first adventure, or the first time can be the best time?
First time can be the best time. Okay, so, is her first time in the Coliseum, with a dad on top of her?
Yeah, that's the first time.
Or is it? Because now you have me thinking, how much of what he's seeing...
No, you're 100% correct. We don't... Anything that is seen from Patrick's perspective, we have no idea if it happened. Well, the very ending, we don't know if the entire summer happened.
Yeah.
The entire summer might be just nothing but a Patrick fantasy.
Yeah, that could have been the time loop right there.
And you know what? That is actually...
that's what the movie's saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the movie's saying.
Well, it's either saying that or it's saying that Patrick is now changed and he will make the move. In future, but it's the same woman. It's the mistress. It has to be.
Well, the movie goes back in time to right where it starts again. So the summer didn't happen.
Yeah,
and that actually makes me like the movie. This whole idea.
I love that part at the end. I love that in European erotica when they do that.
Yeah,
but I love this whole idea of maybe the summer didn't happen because there's one aspect of the movie that you guys didn't touch on in your discussion, which is the death of his friend.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, we did not talk about that. The depth of the Philip Seymour Hoffman guy. All right, that shows up. Yeah,
where basically
drowns on the lake.
His friend drowns on the lake.
Which, by the way, I was talking about impending doom and dread that's hanging over this movie. When he ties the steering wheel and has the thing going at full, throttle, shooting across that lake, and everybody just starts reclining and sleeping and and making out.
So he can squeeze Sylvia Kristel's breast.
I'm waiting for the freaking boat to crash.
Yes. And so is Patrick.
And Patrick is actually, he's defending her honor kind of in the boat, because that's why the fight begins, is because first off, his friend before they get on the boat is like, oh, the last girl I was with had to fake it to tell me that she had a good time. And is kind of telling Patrick that. And then when they get on the boat, he starts groping Julia and then reveals that Julia's a virgin. And that's when Patrick gets really heated. And I think he even grabs his friend and says, she's mine.
Yeah, he does.
At one point.
Yeah.
And then
super possessive.
When his friend dies, when he falls off the boat and he dies, Patrick blames himself and says, like, it's my fault. And he kind of falls into this depression. And that's why I think they go to Verona, for that reason.
Yeah, you're right, to bring him out of his depression.
To kind of bring him out of his depression after he
you need a change of scenery after Patrick's death.
Yeah,
or not Patrick, whatever the kid's name is.
Yeah, after your friend's death. And then he tries
Philip Seymour.
Yeah, Philip Seymour's death.
And then he tries to rape the...
little French Philip Seymour, little Swiss Philip Seymour.
The
hot maid.
The great maid. I love the maid. Savannah.
Yeah. So
I love Savannah's character.
Because
in that
Patrick
movie,
has just seen her basically have sex, this maid.
That was Christine Glasner playing
with
Savannah.
the other people in the house, where they take all of this whipped cream. Sorry, Quentin, that I'm going to just describe this scene. But they take all this whipped cream and they pour it all over her, and they undo her top and they pour it all over her. And then they're like, oh, my little cherry sundae. And then like they start having sex with her. Okay, it reminded me of the weirdness of the Cocaine Cowboys baby powder sex scene, because I'm thinking like, what the hell is going on in this house?
Okay, during this scene, I averted my eyes, all right, because I despise sex scenes that incorporate food inside them. I find it nauseating.
Yeah.
And this was as nauseating,
extra nauseating
as it ever gets.
The movie allows itself to become grotesque when it wants to be grotesque. The whole Peter Burling, the Uncle Alex character, who's like a composer or something, the big fat, like he came walking out of a Ken Russell movie.
Yeah, he totally did.
And is there playing the piano, and he's got that hot Aunt Miriam or whatever, Gisela Hahn.
Yeah, well, that's his wife.
His wife.
Yeah.
Who's just...
Well, the wife's a lesbian. He's supposedly gay.
Yeah, they're just like libertines. Yeah,
they're having a good time.
No, they are a character straight out of a Radley Mesker film.
Yeah.
They're the libertines. Yeah,
they're totally libertines.
And if you read the movie straight, like everything that is shown on screen actually happens. Like the dad has sex with Julia. It's this weird, like... The dad, in a weird way, is liberating Patrick to be able to move forward with Julia, because they have this whole conversation at the cafe where he says, "Why can't you move forward with Julia?" "Oh, because she's a virgin." And it's like,
the dad. No, in Patrick's scenario, if it is true, that is exactly why the dad did it.
And that's the weirdest part to me, is like watching it and thinking, at first I'm like, oh God, this dad is just like a jerk. Like he has like this hot girlfriend who, by the way, is his secretary. Not his secretary, I'm sorry, his accountant.
His accountant, yeah.
And
because when the mother finally shows up.
And she's been embezzling.
Who's a fantastic character when she shows up.
Yeah, Dominique Del Piero.
You don't expect her to show up like she's a wonderful third act addition.
But the father's girlfriend has been embezzling money from the mother's company, which is like even this weird layer. But like at first you're like, God,
there's a lot going on script-wise in this movie.
At first you're like, God, this dad is just a jerk. Like he has like this girlfriend. He's supposed to be spending time with his son, and he's like kind of just not. And then it's like he's having sex with Julia, but like, is he, isn't he? And then when you think about it, like, is he actually doing him a favor? It's really weird.
But then there's the whole thing that it's like, Julia doesn't seem to be enjoying the sex, but almost like it could be a rape. But since it's never brought up again, that you like, well, maybe I'm wrong, but again,
that's like why that byline
it's a zillion question marks, but then actually, oddly enough, all the questions get answered at the end.
Yeah, well, like that's why that byline is so confusing to me. Oh, the first time could be the best. Well, I don't think that in the Coliseum is like what I would consider the best. And even Patrick,
but I think Patrick and Julia,
Patrick and Julia's sex scene. Okay, so when they're on the dock at the very beginning, Julia like wants to have sex with him, and Patrick's like, no, it has to be done in a bed. Like the first time should not be done like on the cold ground. And then eventually at the end of the movie, where Patrick and Julia have sex together, they're in the rain on the tennis court, and it's a clay court, so it's like a muddy.
And it's kind of an ugly sex scene.
Yeah. It's kind of an ugly sex scene, but it's like kind of realistic and like raw. Like if you actually were having sex in the middle of like a storm on a tennis court, like I'm guessing that's what it would be like.
Well,
as if anyone would want to do that.
Well, when the sex scene begins, though, it's even weirder because it's almost like they are having sex while standing, and they're having sex through the net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I gotta say, this movie and movies like this, like Emmanuel and. When I was a kid, like when I was, the age in Little Darlings, this movie and movies like it came out, and it completely fucked me up because I thought this is what all of Europe was like. Mm-hmm. Well, I just assumed this is what Europeans are like. This is the social document that I have.
Well, an interesting thing that you said that I want to go back to is the idea that when you mentioned that they go, everyone seems to be having a good time, but there is this foreboding doom that seems to be hanging over the movie. And I keep waiting for everything to go bad. Well, you're not wrong, because that kind of forbidding doom is almost, again, another part of a lot of these European classy erotica movies, because they usually do end up going bad. They usually do end up in tragedy or debasement or at least a broken heart. To some degree or another. So you're not wrong.
One thing I like about Julia, or the movie Julia, is I like in the end where they're like, oh, we're going to get married. Nothing is going to come between us. Nothing. Mm-hmm. And they get to the house and they don't even get in the door.
Yeah.
That was
so realistic.
I actually forgot about that. And that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
That was an amazing moment. That was all of our dreams.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess we're not going to do it.
And then it's like, okay, so I guess I'm going to go home. Okay, so
I'll see you next year.
Yeah. So it's like, are we even going to see each other? They went from like, we're going to get married to like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, maybe.
Maybe. But you know what? It's that realism. And we actually find that realism also in Little Darlings.
Yeah.
At the very end when Matt Dillon is so like, let's give it a go, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, look, like we never had a beginning. We just had the middle. And like, I'll never forget you. But like, it's over. And it's this kind of realism that it's like, life is not a fairy tale. Like, it's not just going to be for Tatum O'Neal, like, all sunshine and rainbows. Mm-hmm. You're going to like have some experiences that don't last forever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Little Darlings, because she's sort of like, why pretend?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's time to give out some awards.
Let's do it. I know who Best Actress is, and I'm going to start off.
Okay, you go ahead.
For my money, Kristy McNichol, all the way Best Actress. Even though this is like these two girls are really a team in this, Kristy McNichol really blew me away and completely upturned all my expectations of who she was as an actress. And I have a profound newfound respect for her. And I actually, and this director, Ron Maxwell, I'd really, really want to watch with you The Night the Lights Went On in Georgia.
Yeah, me too. Okay, but while we're still with you, why don't you pick Best Actress and Best Actor?
Okay, Best Actor, I'm gonna have to go with Your Man and Mine, Elliott. No. Yes.
You gotta pick one or the other.
Yes, Mikey and Nikki situation.
Yeah, Mikey and Nikki. Yeah.
It's a Mike. You know what? I'm going to go with Elliott Gould as Detective Michael Keneally. And even though Elliott Gould is probably just playing Elliott Gould, I'm not sure he's trying at all to do anything beyond his Dick Cavett appearance that won him this role. Having said that, he's fucking Elliott Gould.
Yes,
He's great.
I'm not arguing at all. Peter Hyams liked him. He cast him in the lead of his very next movie.
Yeah, and he did not end up throwing acid into his eyes.
Yes.
And so he must have delivered to Peter Hyams.
Oh my God.
Don't fuck up my picture.
So Armand Assante would be
supporting.
Okay, yeah. So I'm also going to go with Elliott Gould for Best Actor because I was laughing my butt off. I still am laughing my butt off, and I wasn't expecting to laugh. Just because I don't always find this kind of humor funny, but Elliott Gould really sold it. And I gotta go with Kristy McNichol because I felt represented in a movie where I don't think I relate to that character in that way. Anyway.
She's just marvelous in this movie.
And you know what? You say that her and Tatum O'Neal are like a team, and yeah, they're a team, but I think Kristy McNichol's carrying the movie.
Well, also the screenplay.
She does have the
services.
part.
Yeah, that part is the better part because it has the emotionally crushing. Like the other one, Tatum O'Neal's character.
She still goes through it.
She goes through it, but the disservice to her is that she's kind of still living in the fantasy. She hasn't really changed.
But it's because she hasn't lost her virginity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. And that's a wonderful thing, according to Kristy McNichol at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I will choose Kristy McNichol from Little Darlings as well.
Yes, it's a sweep.
It's a sweep, all right. And I will go with Robert Blake from Busting just because I love Robert Blake
with a cigarette in his mouth.
Yes, absolutely. Best Supporting Actress.
Okay, well, if it's Best Supporting Actress, I'm going with Terry Tordal as Yvonne, the mistress accountant. Wonderful Hungarian actress from Julia.
I would choose her too. She's my best supporting actress.
I was just completely following her for the movie.
I love her. I love her and Julia. She steals the movie as far as I'm concerned. She's terrific. Before we saw Julia, I would have chose Cynthia Nixon.
Yeah.
All right. Because she's so funny,
and she should still get an honorable mention.
I'm giving. That's what I'm doing. I'm definitely giving her an honorable mention. But Terry Torday as the hot pants mistress on the train in Julia, she's incredible. I love her.
I'm gonna give it to the girl that plays Dana in
Dana.
Little Darlings.
Alexa,
I love
that's Alexa
Dana.
Kennan.
Alexa
Oh,
Kennan.
so the one who's smoking.
If I
agent.
pronounce that correctly.
I love her character. She's so funny.
Yeah.
She has a lot of good lines, and also she's the only character that backs Kristy McNichol for the bet. She's the only one that believes in her, and I like that. I like that character.
Right on.
So.
Cool.
Okay, best supporting actor.
For that, I'm going with Armand Assante because I think that's a really, really tough role to pull off. To take that role, to choose, I'm going to do that role, and to be the guy who's too old for Tatum O'Neal, to still be the dreamboat, and to be the stand-up guy in the end. It's a tightrope walking act that he did to pull that off and to pull it off well.
I'm definitely going with Alan Garfield. All right. I have no problem with your Armand Assante choice, but I am definitely going with Alan Garfield as Rizzo. Like I said, I'm thinking about Busting right now, and I just see him. I see his chubby little self running around in the hospital gown with his butt hanging out. Yeah, and just laughing like a hyena.
May Gorwitz rest in peace. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Armand Assante also because that line reading, Quentin, that you mentioned earlier in the show, I love it because she refers to him as like Mr. I don't remember his name in the movie, but like Mr. So-and-so. And he's like, oh, please, like we've been intimate. Haven't we? And it's such a good line. And he teeters like so easily. That character could feel like a pedophile, like so easily. And he somehow doesn't. And he still is kind of sexy.
And he still remains a dreamboat,
It's still the teacher that the girl will fantasize about.
Okay, best director.
Oh, I can say that one easy. Peter Hyams.
Yeah, Peter Hyams.
Okay, but
Peter Hyams. It is. It's a sweet.
I have a question though about that. He's normally the guy that does it all. But he's not the cinematographer on this movie, is he?
Yeah, no,
he became the guy who did it all.
Yeah, this is still earlier enough in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bold choice to say, I'm going to be the cinematographer. It took him a few movies before he was ready to do that.
Yeah. But because the cinematography on Busting is really good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Super energetic.
Yeah.
I'm going for Ron Maxwell for best script.
Okay, yes.
Well, yeah, actually, you know what? That actually makes total sense. I mean, yeah. I mean, Ron Maxwell should also receive a director accolade.
He can't. You can't.
He can't. I'm just saying. If Ron is
Peter
listening,
Hyams hadn't decided to become Peter Hyams and do some of the best action sequences, best action sequences of the '70s, where he predates Hong Kong, then Ron Maxwell would have won.
Ron Maxwell did some great battle scenes later on in life.
But you know what though? The reason why Peter Hyams, besides becoming Peter Hyams, his use of that doorway dolly. Doorway dolly is mind opening. It's mind altering, and I think
Matthew's doorway dolly.
Yeah, the performance that Ronald Maxwell gets out of her,
Kristy
McNichol, is so good, but it's not a doorway dolly sequence after sequence after sequence.
Now, oddly enough, when it comes to cinematography, I almost feel like I need to choose Busting because of everything we talked about, how they were pushing the cinematography. I do feel that that's Peter Hyams more than the cinematographer. That's the cinematographer rising to the occasion for what Peter Hyams wants. There's a part of me that almost wants to give the cinematography to Julia.
Julia is very well shot.
It's very well shot.
I mean, Julia is...
It's very classy. It's very well shot.
Very classy, well-shot movie that is a travelogue film that's showing off Europe.
We should mention, because you brought it up slightly and we didn't go into it, there is a scene, they go to Verona, Italy, and there's a scene where they actually play out a scene in a fun way at the Juliet balcony where Sylvia Kristel
climbs
up and takes
she
the
actually
balcony.
does a kind of take on
and it's she actually
Juliet's.
recounts the entire monologue, and it's a really good scene. It's the scene that's the most like an Eric Romer scene. All right, that's the scene. The movie's Julia is there's legit stuff that happens in Julia all the way through the movie, but that was one of the most legit scenes.
The movie cares about more than just the sex in the film.
Yeah.
It's delivering what it needs to deliver to be that programmer that is required by the market at that time. And having said that, it is a fully realized movie about human beings.
Yeah. I agree.
It's a deep study on people, and it takes the time to go to Verona
Yeah.
and to go to Juliet's balcony and to stage a scene there.
Okay. Best film.
I have to go with Little Darlings. I laughed. I almost cried. I had a great time.
You know what? I'm going to go with Little Darlings also.
I'm going with Little Darlings.
Wow!
Yay!
Wow, I was sure you were going to go with Busting.
I almost can't believe that I'm not going with Busting.
I was just tenderly touched by it, and Kristy McNichol blew my mind. Blew my mind.
I love the comedy in it. I love the guys in Busting. I love the way it hops from set piece to set piece. But at the end of the day, there is a punch at the end. There's the freeze frame that happens at the end of Little Darlings. It's one of those freeze frames that just highlights how much you enjoyed this movie. And you're almost a little the way that song kicks in, you're almost a little unaware about how much you enjoyed it until all of a sudden it stops.
It's so good. And also there's like this weird part of me that thought maybe their parents are going to get together and all of a sudden they're going to be sisters. Like, it's like, of course, like the girl's fantasy.
Sequel.
But I mean, like, it's a really good ending.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling.
And that brings us to another end of our show. I want to thank Gala. I want to thank my co-host,
Roger
Robert Avery. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And I'll see you next time in Podcast Land. Be kind, rewind.
Arrivederci.
Bye, everyone.
The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avery. Our engineer is Devin Torrey Bryant, and our executive producers are Colin Anderson and Natalie Mualem. Find out more about the show by heading to videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.
Have you ever wanted to hear Mick Garris discuss the differences between original source material and the movies they become? Or Joe Russo's favorite gateways into horror? What about author Max Brooks and how he thinks that Minecraft will literally save humanity? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these topics on my new show, The Gala Show. In this weekly podcast, guests from Los Angeles and beyond have 30 minutes on the clock to bring whatever topic they want to the mic. So, tune in every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The first episode drops October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts.